What's up, everyone? Jeremy Majors here with Majors Academy Dog Training out of Green Bay, Wisconsin, and we are here live. It's Thirsty Thursdays, episode 53. We're going to talk about dogs, we're going to talk about the kids, and we're going to talk about both of them. And I want you guys to ask any questions about them. So I've had a couple of questions about them this week, and I've also went to a training session that involved a very child aggressive dog. So I want to tell you guys about the experience, and if you guys want to weigh in, go ahead. You can ask as many questions as you like, and we're here for a good hour, so feel free to ask. We are live on YouTube and Facebook, so if one isn't working, jump on the other, and vice versa. All right, hope everyone that is watching is having a great day. Cheers. All right, so I'm going to get to some of the first questions. I'll just get to them in the order that I received them. But always, you guys know that the live questions will be answered first. You guys are the priority. All right, let's get to the first question. All right, Kristen. Sorry I couldn't answer it earlier, but I was thinking that this would be a good question to ask for Thirsty Thursday, so bear with me. I have an 8-month-old Shepherd mix, a foster, came from Missouri, and was in a shelter for 15 days from what I know. She's so scared, which is fine. She's made progress in the last week as far as jumping in the car, putting her harness on, and started playing with toys. Question, she is very sensitive to any tension on the leash. I've played with different leashes. The best one is a cheap long line, which weighs nothing. She will only walk on one leg of a block at most before beelining home. I have been taking her to the soccer fields in the morning, and she actually jumped out of the car this morning. Uh-oh. She's never usually gets past 10 feet from me. Today she explored a little bit, but still so shy. She isn't real social, but I will work on that as I can take her to my salon. Let a heavier leash on her to drag during the day. Yeah, that's fine. I wouldn't mind that. If the problem is she stops walking, then just coax her on through those periods of times where she wants to go back home. I think you're making good progress from what the question is about, but yeah, I would say try the long leash or the thicker leash and see what she does. See how she does with that. It just depends on the dog too, because I have a little dog that can drag a big rope, but then we've had a big dog that can't even handle that. They have to have one of those shoestring leashes. So I think I'm answering your question. I'm not really sure. If I'm not, just clarify for me. But I think what you want to know is, should you put the long leash on? Yeah, that would be fine. She'll come out of her shell, and then we'll explore more. That's what I think. All right. Thank you for your question. Okay, question from Lori. How do you deal with training people after you've trained the dog? I've had a perfectly trained dog go back either to their owner or get adopted, and the people just cannot deal. So, good question. The thing that I deal with, or I stress with people, whoever works with me, is that I want to be the most accessible dog trainer out there. So I want to make it as easy as possible to be accessible. So one of the things that we offer is free private lessons for the rest of the dog's life. I always tell people, your success is going to be based on how well we work together too. If you do have ups and downs, feel free to call me, email me. We can do Skype sessions, FaceTime. We can do all those things to make sure you stay on the right track. So that's what I really, really emphasize before they sign up, during the training and after the training. Um, I make sure they understand that before the training too. Like we'll put the good foundation on the dog, but it's ultimately up to you to keep in contact with me. And I also have Saturday classes that I do for they're also free too. So that's another thing. Some people just have to hear it over and over again. Hear certain things so that they can think a certain way, and then the dog reflects their thinking because their behavior reflects what they think. That's what I do. I just be as accessible as possible. So thank you for your question. Feel free to ask another one, and I hope that helped. All right, let's see. All right, hold on. Let me. I know the questions are coming in hot right now. Let me take a sip of my beer first. Okay. Let's see. Oh, okay. I always wondered, is it common for dogs to not like children even as a puppy? Malcolm first started growling at children at 3 months old. I don't think dogs come out of the womb not liking children. I think some dogs can come out of the womb loving children, but I think there are dogs who handle certain stress in a different way. And it sounds like your dog may handle what he perceives to be as unwanted pressure, which is a baby who doesn't really know how to regulate their own pressure. And we'll get into that more in depth, but basically how your dog deals with a little maybe screaming loud thing that kind of moves real funny, that's how he dealt with it. That's how he's dealing with trying to get that pressure away from them. Okay, so again, it's all about how certain dogs deal with certain things and the way that they do it. Some dogs are naturally fine, but I don't think there's any dogs that are born hating anything. There are dogs that are timid genetically. There are dogs that deal with stress aggressively genetically, and there are dogs who deal with stress passively genetically. So all those things can be worked out through training, though. I have a crazy dog, and some of the things I can do with him because of training, you would think, he's not crazy, but he's crazy. Thank you for your question. All right, I got a couple of questions from a new mom. So I got to make sure I answer that one. Got a couple new moms out there. All right. This question is from Renee. Hey Jeremy, I'm hoping to catch this live, but just in case, thanks to your advice of keeping our pups in the kitchen for 1 month, we brought our little one home from the hospital. Our dogs are doing great around her. They pretty much ignore her and know their boundaries, which is perfect. My question is, Echo started sitting in front of me when I have Alex with her back to us, watching the door. Sometimes it's after she's heard something outside, or she will just lay with her back to us with the entryway in her sight. Do you think she's recognized the importance of Alex and is guarding her? She has never done this before. Thanks. First of all, I'm glad that things are smoothing out for you guys. It's an adjustment. It's a big adjustment to, some of our dogs get all the attention, and then here comes this little thing that smells funny to them, that sounds funny, that looks funny, and some dogs are like, what the hell is this thing? So it's an adjustment for everyone, and that's why I really can't emphasize enough to take your time with those things. But absolutely, the dog can start taking the role of more of a protective role. Yes, 100%. I'm actually watching a dog who has a child sibling in the house, and he was with the owner for about a year and a half and then they had the baby, and now the dog is barking extra, becoming more protective of the baby. So I definitely think that, yeah, it could be a protective thing for sure. So thank you for your question. All right, where'd that question go on YouTube? I can't see it. Can you ask your question again? Sometimes it disappears before I can get to it. Or is that a statement? If you don't mind, please just type in it again. All right. Next question. Let me see if I got something on Facebook Live. Okay. The next question comes from Shanna. I cannot make it live, but will definitely be watching later. I PM'd you to my question, the accidental bites. Okay, so I'm going to end baby proofing in general earlier this week. Thanks so much for the episode. Absolutely. I didn't even know, I forgot that you asked me this question. I didn't even take in consideration your question when I made the title of this video, so it just must have been meant to be. All right, let's see. Let me get to your question. Here it is. All right, question for Thirsty Thursdays this week. Does a dog ever accidentally bite a person? I was playing tag with my boxer mix, and she spun around and nicked me in my thigh with her teeth. The impact got me good and landed a pretty decent puncture wound. She became apologetic, but I'm not sure that was just because of my reaction to her teeth or if she truly didn't mean to land one. I have a toddler that I'm trying to slowly break her into, and this has just made me uneasy. I don't blame you. All right, check it, man. All right, check this out. So this has got to be the topic of the week. I didn't unknowingly to that question. I solely based this topic based on what my experience was last night, and I'll tell you guys about that. Just hold on a few seconds, a few more minutes, and I'll tell you about the experience. But so all right, to your question, does your dog accidentally put a puncture wound in you? My opinion is no. I don't think so. I don't think a dog accidentally puts a hole in a person. They can accidentally put their mouth on you, but without knowing your dog, of course, I can't be 100% certain and sure in telling you your answer. But in general, and in my experience, they don't take it as far as making you bleed with a puncture wound. Like even a scratch may be accidental. Even hi Carly, even just a bite and release could be accidental. But remember, I think, in my opinion, when dogs decide to bite and or just fight, when they do those things, they still can be reached, and they still are thinking. So in my opinion, I would question the intention of that. But just for wrestling, that normally wouldn't cause that sort of a reaction where your dog puts a puncture. A scratch, yeah, right? A bruise, oh, okay, I can work with that. But a puncture wound, I don't know. I would question if it wasn't accidental. And I'm going to lean more on it was on purpose side. So, unfortunately, that's what I would think about it. Because a puncture wound is, accidental bites usually don't leave puncture wounds. That's what I'm going to say. But all right, let's just get into it. Might as well get into it. Okay, let's just start off with how I would approach and what I've told people when you bring in a newborn. Let's just talk about newborns for a second. All right, when you bring in a newborn and you are unsure about your dog's behavior around the baby. What your goal should be is to start off the relationship in a respectful manner first, to ensure a positive relationship with the dog and the baby. I don't have kids, but I love kids and I've always worked with kids. So they're really similar in the sense where um, they just respond to certain things, certain energies, the same way. Okay, because they're not yet able to really rationalize. But anyway, bringing in the newborn. First and foremost, you have to be to ensure a great transition, to ensure a good relationship between your dog and your toddler. You have to be in control of the dog. A lot of people come to me before they have the baby, right after they have the baby, to now get control of their dog. Um, I've even had the last two dogs that I trained. The lady had the baby uh, while we were scheduled to do the go home session, and it was unplanned. But so it made their life a little hectic for a while, because the baby showed up a little early, right? But anyway, so what I would do, bringing in newborn, um, I would separate. My dog will not meet my baby until they are completely. Listen, I've already said this many, many times. I don't move forward with anything until I get complete indifference, until I get complete calmness with my dogs. Like they gotta just be like, whatever. Not what is that? We're not moving forward when they're in that mindset, especially if you're questioning their intentions in any way, right? There are some dogs who can pass with flying colors, period, whatever, and can deal with that thing so easily, right? But there are some dogs who, like to have things their way. They're attention whores, and once that attention is taken away, they're going to try and do what it takes to get it back, or get angry if the attention is shifted, get crabby. So, the best thing to do is to separate for a while because then the dog can also get with boundaries. The dog can also get used to the sound of the baby, because that's new. The smells of the baby, because that's new. And then the attention that the baby gets from you, because that's new. All those things are new, and all those things can trigger certain things in dogs. And I don't want to say trigger. I just want to say, not trigger, but I mean, whatever. But I can say trigger's fine. I just don't want to make it seem like they're machines. But it can, provoke sassiness because things have changed dramatically. So, yeah, first and foremost, when you bring that toddler in, create space, create boundaries from your baby, between your baby and your dog. Allow your dog to totally get used to the new thing, the new everything before you move forward. Okay, and then take it very slow and keep the interactions brief. There's tons of people that just bring in their newborn, and their babies and the dogs just come right up to them, and they're sort of thinking, oh, let's see what happens. I don't agree with that approach, especially if you have a dog who's sort of ill-behaved in any area, because you have to remember this, and I've told people this before too. Dogs that usually bite and bark and all this stuff, they don't know what's right from wrong necessarily, because everything to them is on their own terms. Oh, we got a question from YouTube. All right, I'm going to take a break and come right back to that after this question. How do you explain the difference between aggression and insecurity to clients? Thanks. I love your training methods. Thank you, Lori. I appreciate it. Aggression and insecurity. So I kind of think I kind of group it up as one whole thing, or one, you know, first and foremost, dogs can be aggressive because they're insecure. And also dogs can be aggressive because they're bratty. So I group it up in two things. Insecurity, which is fear, like fear aggression, and then brattiness aggression, like sassy aggression. Like, I just don't want you around. I don't want to get out of the bed. You know, something like things like that. And then so then I always explain it like this. Dogs react for those two reasons, but they also can have both put together. There can be a little bit of fear and a little bit of sassy. This is how you can tell the difference. If a person has kept a dog longer than a year, then you know that the aggression's coming more of becoming on the side, leaning towards I can do this, which is the bratty, sassy side of aggression. If the dog is new, relatively new, and they're displaying like crate aggression and leash aggression, and like not so much territorial aggression, that comes later, but those things come from more of a fear thing, which the dog thinks I have to do this to make myself feel better. So that's how I kind of explain it. It's sassiness, bratty aggression, insecure fear aggression, insecurity coming from insecurity, and then most of the time, again, it could be a little bit of both, depending on the miscommunication between the owner and the client. I mean, the owner and the dog. So, thank you for your question. Okay. Let's see. Next question. All right, stop the mouthiness. 8-month-old lab shepherd with a whole bunch of fear issues. She has bonded with me, but now after 11 days, she started showing her brattiness. Just 11 days, huh? Mouthy, jumping on me, counter surfing. I've used the pet convincer 3 times, and she run the cowards. All right. So, okay. I question how much you allow the dog to get away with right away, because I know that you're experienced with dogs. How the dog obviously has too much freedom way too early if the dog's feeling comfortable with jumping on you. Remember this. So this is also plays back to the baby thing. Okay. All of it plays a big role. And this is what I was telling the folks last night. So this is going to help you out. But if you allow a dog to jump on you, you are allowing the dog to disrespect you. Dogs take jumping on each other as a very disrespectful thing. It's disrespectful to them, so it should be disrespectful to you. It can be a way of controlling you, because that's attention grabbing in certain ways, right? It's sort of attention grabbing that when they jump. So take jumping as a sign of disrespect. Okay. The more things they get to disrespect you, and again, this comes back to the whole right and wrong thing. How can you teach a dog? How can you expect a dog to know what right and wrong is if they get to do whatever they want? Nothing's wrong to them then. They do what they want because they do what they want. So 90% of the time, even 90% of the time, if they get to do what they want, and then the other 10%, you expect them to learn right from wrong, it's going to be tough on them. It shouldn't be 90%. It should be 50%. Give and take. So when you bring in a new dog, the dog should be on leash in the house. You should have your tools accessible to you. And you should teach that place command. When you bring in a new dog in the house, the place command is crucial, because you're telling the dog this is where you should stay, and this is where you're going to have a safe, nice place. And this is also where you can go to get unwanted pressure away from you, especially when you do something bad. When you counter surf, I get on to you. The dog, if the dog knows place, the dog's going to go back to place command and lay down, right? So that's what I would do. I mean, you got to start off with the dog not having all of that freedom to develop those bad habits. It'll be a nice, easy transition if the dog is crated when it's inside more times than it's just free roaming, or in place. Okay, there shouldn't be playtime in the house, especially when you're teaching right from wrong. Now, when the dog learns that, then the dog earns all of that freedom. But some people get to a point where their thinking is backwards. Let's let the dog do whatever it wants, and then it ends up having to be that the dog then has to be crated when people come over, has to be in a room and that's no freedom. So instead of sort of dictating the freedom in the beginning and then allowing them to have more in the end because you taught them right, people let them have so much freedom and then end up having to put the dog away when certain things are going on. So the end result is that they have less freedom because you gave them way too many choices in the beginning. All right. So next question. I don't get to watch much often, but I enjoy, where'd that go? But I enjoy your training videos whenever I have the chance. Thank you, Ann. I appreciate it. Okay, let's see. They put the car, where are we at here? Okay, they put the car seat on the floor. Who's they? Do you think Arlen growls because he's insecure? No. Arlen does not growl because he's insecure. Arlen growls because he thinks it can get him somewhere. Arlen growls because some way or another it gets him a reaction out of you guys that may be in his favor. You know, so you guys have done a good job making him feel safe. There's no excuse. That's what I'm going to say. He's a brat. He's an attention grabber for sure. All right. Do you think, hi Alex, do you think some people try to force the relationship between the dog and babies if the dog is a certain breed especially? Man, I can absolutely agree with that. I do think people do try and force things unknowingly, though, uneducated, and that's, you know, that's unfortunate, obviously, because that's where accidents can happen. They don't forget that they also do have to advocate for the dog, just like last night. You know, the baby continued to just go towards. It was 4 months. They continued to go towards the dog. The dog would lift his mouth. Now you want to get on to the dog that did that, or lift his lip, but you also have to remember too. This is what I told them. I'm saying, I like, you know, you got to give this baby, you know, you got to give this dog a chance to get to know the baby, or just get comfortable with the baby without the threat of him, you know, without the threat of the baby putting that unwanted pressure. Because, you know, at 4 months it's and then walking towards the dog and doing this and whatever, and the dog's like, I don't want you near me, I don't know you, you know. It's like, so I'm not very comfortable. So yeah, you have to, when you force things, you know, that just means you're not taking enough time and accidents can happen. So what I told them was, if you don't want to be overwhelmed with the baby and the dog all in the same room, put one of them up somewhere. If, you know, like, put the dog up, just relax. One of the dogs they have is fine with the baby. So, but when you want to work on it, then you do have to pay attention to your baby. You have to also teach your baby not to freely walk to the dog. And listen, I was even correcting the baby a little bit last night. I was like, hey, don't do that. and she would turn. She was cute as hell, but she would turn around and then like she got a little horse that she'd jump on, and she'd start rocking back and forth, and then like 10 seconds later she'd jump off the horse, go back towards the dog, and be like, hey, don't go towards him, because we put the dog on this place, and they had a good place, so they used that, but the dog is super resource aggressive too, and that's what I was there for. But so here's the other thing. Here's the other thing that they made me realize. Wait a minute. I got a question coming in. I'll get back to that because that's important. All right, Bolly, what do you recommend as a safe form of introduction? I've taken to using the basket muzzle because I can't predict his behavior. 1 minute he's getting pet and treats, but then once anyone pulls away, he bites. I've come to the conclusion that the muzzle is the most safe method, but the muzzle isn't teaching him not to bite either. Okay, Valerie, this is a very good question. Many people struggle with this. I get this a lot. So, and this is what I was just about to say. So this is great. Everything's kind of falling in line. I don't know what it is. It's a good night. That's what it is. Okay, so you don't have to give the dog treats in order for the dog to get along with anything, anyone, any dog that you want. So many trainers, that's their approach. Let's go inside and give this fearful, aggressive dog some treats to get along with the dog. I have never given a dog a treat in order for them to like me more. Never. It's not necessary. Safety, safety comes through structure. So that means dogs start to feel safe with me and open up with me through my structure, because they now know that I'm not there to cause them harm, but I just sort of demand certain behaviors out of them. So safety, them feeling safe with me, comes through structure. And so if you have a dog that's unpredictable, what you have to do is make the dog's behavior predictable, but you also have to make whoever you're trying to get introduce them to, you also have to make their behavior predictable as well. Because if they listen to you and say, for example, you let them go to your bed, you make them go to their bed, right? You have to at least start to educate people on what your dog's fear issues are, so that they can respect those things, and then everything opens up after that. But that's what your dog needs to see with enough time. Your dog can get along with anything, at least coexist. May not ever love, but I think dogs can actually do that too, if they're held to that sort of expectation. But your dog needs to be, it doesn't even have to have a muzzle on. I mean, you can have that muzzle on, but if my dog's in a down stay on its bed, it doesn't get a chance to bite people when they walk away from them. Okay, because the dog's listening to me and doing the job that I told him to do. But the result then is that the dog loses the need to go after the retreating person. There's tons of dogs that do that. They're all cool and kosher. Not really. They just aren't biting. And you think they're cool and kosher. They ain't cool and kosher. They're not wagging their tail. They're not, they letting them pet. That ain't what, they're not enjoying that. They're just dealing with it. And so, I put my dog in a downstay, and once they listen. Now here's the other thing. Now that when people walk away, then you can also remind your dog of what to do, which can be the thing that keeps your dog in the down and not bite that person. So the dog's in a down, people get up from the couch, walk past them, you say down, and that may do it. But you also have to make sure your dog's taking your word for it. If it doesn't, then you have to have a tool to help with that. All right, so that's what I would do. I wouldn't have the dog in between the people either. You know what I mean? Because the dog can get sort of spatially, reactive. So I would separate the dog from me, so the dog would be over there in a down. Have children, whoever, you got to be able to control the children though, over there, so he can see from a distance that they are in control. He also needs to see that you can also control those things, to be open-minded about it. That's what I think. Everyone has to be under control long enough for the dog to really realize that they're okay. There's something that they don't have to worry about. All right. Thank you for your question. Okay. I have a 5-month-old Dalmatian. Recently had my young nephews over. One is 2, the other is 1. She was awesome around them. She would give them kisses, let them play with her toys. Is this a sign she will be good with kids as she grows, or could she grow out of liking them? Great question. I think you're on a good path. I would say no, not necessarily. How you can be sure of that, though, is that the dog listens to you around children. Because dogs can grow to be, again, if you do have a dog that develops into a pretentious dog, then they are allowed to do what's convenient for them. 5 months is just a puppy, so they're not even secure enough with asserting themselves yet. So you just want to make sure you're doing your due diligence by, getting the dog some training and just making sure the dog responds to you without much challenge. You know what I mean? Because again, yeah, the dog is 5 months and has some good experience with children. But I've had, unfortunately, I don't want to scare you, but I have had dogs that have gotten along with children for a long time, and then, have gotten sassy with children in the future, or once they grow up. So a dog, some of them, they'll change after 10 months, especially males. So you just want to watch. It looks like she's a female. But hormones do change dogs' behavior, but that's a small portion of their behavior overall. Okay, so yeah, just keep them humble. You may not have any problem at all, but I'm the type of guy that just sort of is a guy who, just makes sure of certain things, because, I really, 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 really hate when dogs bite children. Really hate it. Okay, so thank you for your question. Feel free to ask another one. All right, Molly. What about bringing him places? I muzzle him in stores, etc. I try to let him explore outside of the house. But with 2 bites on his belt, I can't allow it to happen again. I don't muzzle him for introductions in the home. When you bring him places, just keep people away from him. You know what I mean? Because I bring a lot of dogs that have bitten plenty of people without a muzzle. I never work with muzzles. But I keep people the heck away from the dog, and make sure that the dog is under 100% compliance about the structure of the walk. Before I bring him into the store, the dog's not pulling, you know what I mean, in any way at all. So I walk around the store, or I'll walk outside the store until we get a nice heel, and then I'll go inside the store, and then I just I'm always on the lookout. I'm being proactive, and I'm kind of just giving people a lot of space and dogs a lot of space so that nothing happens. You know what I mean? So it's all about our control. If you want to, we can do it. We can do that. Or you're invited to pack walks. I don't know if you're available on Saturdays, but on Saturdays, bring them to bring them to the pack walks, and we'll go over a lot of different stuff. That's the struggle I'm having. He wears his do not pet vest and has a muzzle, but he's so pretty, people say. It's very frustrating, and I've had a person approach asking if we were training. Yeah, I mean, that's what I tell people. 100%. Don't, we're training. I'm sorry, he can't be pet. Please keep your distance. You know what I mean? So we're in training. I usually don't have a problem with that because I really have a good, a really good mean mug, I would say, and people don't approach because I know the average person that just doesn't know wants to always pet dogs and touch dogs, and I can't have people getting bit, so I really am tough on that. So I make a mean face sometimes when I walk around, and they don't even ask me for the most part. So anyway, going back to the original thing. Okay, so we talked about bringing in newborns, right? And we talked about advocating for. We talked about advocating not only for the baby, but also advocating for the dog. Very important concept. Amy says, I think it's important for people to understand stress signals their dogs are showing. If a dog is stressed around children and the handler is not reading them, bites that could have been avoided often happen. Lip licking, ear positions, eyes darting, panting, yawning, etc. Yeah, that's exactly right. Well, what we are saying is we do have to advocate for the dog when the dog gives us those signals, so it doesn't get to the bite. And I also really stress that they should be, just taking into account what's fair, right? If they're allowing the baby to if one party or the other is allowed to do it at once, then you can't really blame, you can't really blame one or the other. If the baby's just allowed to walk up to the dog, then what? I mean, you're not even giving the dog enough time to establish a good relationship. So let's just talk about that. How to rebuild or how to start off the good relationship. Like I said, creating space, and only if it's convenient for you guys. It doesn't have to be an everyday thing. People get overwhelmed really quickly because they're every day living with a dog that could potentially bite their child. So don't overwhelm yourself. Give the dog its proper attention, exercise, needs, all that good stuff, and then put the dog away until the dog until you are ready to deal with dog and child, and you are able to spend your 100% time advocating for the child and the dog. If not, put the dog up. The dog will appreciate you. You're advocating for the dog in that sense. The dog will be like, all right, cool. I don't got to worry about this little screamy thing coming towards me. You know what I'm saying? So that's how you will ensure a positive, that the relationship goes in a positive upward direction. And because it's just like a relationship between two fighting dogs. I bring them here. I'll make sure they're both under control for long enough until they start to get comfortable, and then we start giving more and more freedom, and because their relationship is more comfortable as time goes on. Same thing with a dog and a child, same thing with a dog and a human. Through us, everything is possible, but it has to be through us, and it can't be up to them, because when it's up to them, bad things happen. You want me to deal with it? The dog's laying there on the bed. Here comes the baby. You better come get this baby before I deal with it. Here it comes. You ain't said anything. Bite. I dealt with it and it worked for me. You didn't do it. So if you're not there to do it, you're not there to deal with it, then the dog should be put up. Period. Don't let your child get bit by another dog. It's not cool. So my dog and toddler get along great. It's okay that they play fight, like where she pushes him and he knocks over while she's laughing and he's friendly. P.S. Where's my barking crazy Duke? Duke right now is here. I'll show you. Duke is right in there. Duke! He's in the crate. We keep it open for him so he can go in and out. But his bed is in there, and that's where he likes to stay. So anyway, your dog, that's hard to say. That's hard to say. Now listen, with Duke and his behavior, I would give them breaks. How about that? I think we can agree on that. You want to be able to stop it when you want it. Okay? If you think it's getting out of control, if you think Duke is being too much, if you think your baby's being too much, then you want to stop it when you want and give them breaks. That's going to be crucial. That's what I do with dogs, trying to get dogs to get along. I give them breaks often so that they can kind of relax. And if one is being overbearing, then the other has some time to sort of, take a break. So it just depends on the intensity too. Watch Duke's and his intensity and his overall demeanor. You know your dog better than I do. If I would say, how does he play with other dogs? Is it intense? Is it one-sided? Is he kind of a bully? Is he kind of pushy? All those things you want to take into account when play fighting in general. But my theory is when you play fight with your dog, you should be in control of that as well. They should not be in control of it. Because that's how they sort of establish who's who, that when they're play fighting with each other. So, yeah, I just be in control of it. Anything that you are in question of, give it some breaks. Okay. Thank you for your question. So Charity is afraid, the 8-month-old lab shepherd mix. How do I get her over the feel sorry for her bad past? Well, the bad past thing, I always tell people this. How much, first and foremost, okay, you say the dog must have been beaten because the dog is timid. That's just not true. There are dogs that will genetically come out of the womb and be in a perfect home and have everything it needs and wants and all this and still be fearful. Tons of German Shepherds. I get, well, when he was younger, he would just back behind me. But now when he's older, he bites. And it's like, all right, they got him from a breeder. They never touched the dog, beat the dog, or anything like that. They are just genetically fearful dogs. So I would question that. It's not, I say it's probably only 10% of how you want to treat your dog based on their past, because there are genetically fearful dogs who duck at the sight of a raised flag or whatever, right? They're just timid naturally, and people automatically assume that the dog, he must have been beaten. Oh my goodness, what a bad past! It's so unknown. I had someone say that their dog, because their dog didn't like their nails trimmed, that the dog must have been tortured with a pliers, and I'm like, there's plenty of dogs that don't like their nails clipped, just because they don't like them clipped. So I say all that to say, I don't really take that into account as to what I'm doing. I will cater to fear, because fear is legit, but once you know how to read dogs, then you know when to take the next step. And it's like, all right, we're doing this. I'm not taking into account how fearful you are, because you dogs also know that that fear can keep them in a comfort zone, and they'll do what it takes to stay in the comfort zone unless we take their hand and say, hey, let me show you that this is something you can become comfortable with. All right. Thank you for your question. Okay, dokie. So, yeah, that's it. I mean, I think I covered enough. I could go on and on and on and on and on about dogs and babies and kids and toddlers and all of that stuff. I want to re-emphasize this point. Babies don't need to touch dogs in order for the dogs to get along with the kids. They don't need to be touched by them. Okay, if you have a naturally timid dog, then you may want to give them space. If you have a dog that's bomb-proof, whatever. I don't care what you do, but always understand that. So that's how the dog, when the baby got bit last, or the night before last, the baby was giving the dog treats. And I'm like, you don't, that's not necessary to do in order for them to have a good relationship. The good relationship's going to be through you. Everything is. Okay? Everything's through your leadership, period. All right, I've started training my 5-month-old Dalmatian, but she is learning so much slower than my Weimaraner did, and I get frustrated, and I hear people always saying Dallas can get aggressive, so I want her to grow up right. Dollies, oh, you mean Dalmatians? Yeah, Dalmatians are genetically known to be a little snippy. They're so in love with that look that they that aggression came with that look. But yeah, you can help with that. You can help with that. For example, I have a dog who is naturally dog aggressive, like genetically, really prey drive is through the roof, and he's naturally a dog aggressive dog, but you never know it because I've really trained him to control his impulses, to become aggressive. So that's more so of what it is. Learning what the dog is naturally, temperamentally. And then if anything you perceive as wrong, then you have to teach the dog to learn how to control those impulses amongst the environment where they become fearful and or aggressive in any way. And that doesn't have to do with just fear and aggression either. It can be anything you want, right? Chasing squirrels or whatever it is. Learning your dog temperamentally is going to be key. And it can't be compared to, hey Liz, it can't be compared to your other dog, or excuse me, what was I trying to say? It can't be compared. Sorry, my wife commented and it distracted me. Anyway, get to know the dog's temperament basically, and then anything you don't like, or anything the dog displays that you don't like, allow the dog to learn how to control its impulses. That right there is going to be the win-win situation. Okay, because I have two very controlling dogs. By nature, they want to control by being assertive. The other is a very flighty dog, like super scared. All difficult dogs. But yet, I can do what I want with them. I have to change who I am a little bit to get them to that point as far as temperament goes. But yeah. Are you taking new clients? I am taking new clients. I'm always taking new clients. So if you need help, let me know. All right, folks. If you guys got any last burning questions that are just inside of you, go ahead and ask, because we got about 5 minutes left, and Again, I can continue to run my mouth about dogs and babies because I can't talk enough and I can't stress enough. Take your time. Be in control. Make sure your dogs listen. Not just when the baby's around either. It'll make an easier situation if you can actually get your dogs to stop jumping on you. If you can actually get your dogs to stop barking out the window. If you can actually get your dog to go to its bed when you want the dog to go to its bed. If you can actually stop getting the dog to begging for food. If your dog has to listen to you more often than not, then your dog's going to listen to you much better when it counts, which is around that baby. But if you come inside and the dog rushes you, jumps on you, if the dog is allowed to be at that table looking at you, if the dog is able to look out the window and bark its head off, if the dog is able to walk on leash and sniff everywhere and shit everywhere and piss everywhere, then what's to stop the dog from saying, shit, I can bite this baby too, and there won't nothing happen. I've been doing what I want since day one. So that's what you have to take in consideration. All the small things will help that big thing be much easier to deal with. And I'll end it with this. This is the perfect example. Hold on, I gotta take a drink. I'll end it with this. This is how the session went. Yesterday, walked into a house with a child aggressive dog, also a super resource aggressive dog. Walked into the house, the dog came up and nosed me right in the groin. Like, I was like, woo, it surprised the hell out of me. I lifted my knee up and said, go on somewhere. And the dog stood there and just looked at me like this. Like he was like this. And I just stood there and looked right back at him. I was like, and it was a standoff. And the dog, and I was like, eventually I was like, go on somewhere. And the dog went like this. He was like, and then walked away, right? And every time I moved, the dog came right back to me and stood right there and went like this. Like, if you move the wrong way, dude, I'm gonna bite you. And then I just stood there and went like this, looked at him right in the eye, and I was like, bring it. Then I was like, go on somewhere, and he'd do it again. And I had to do that about 4 times. But I was telling that dog right from the get-go that I'm not one you can just do anything with, and I'm different. So when we started doing the resource aggression thing, the dog did not even react. And the parents were so surprised, like, whoa, like that was too easy. I just said out, I walked towards the dog, and the dog walked away. Every time. So I say that to say, because I made him listen to me, or I sort of demanded that respect in a very smaller level, which is just walking through the door and creating space in between him and I, then he decided that he might try and listen to me when the big thing goes on, right? Like guarding his pig ear. His pig ear is his favorite thing. He had 2 of them on the floor. I was able to walk up. I said, go on. Same thing I did with when I tried to create space when I walked through the door. Because he'll crowd you, he'll jump on you, he'll do all that. So just because I didn't allow my dog to jump on me now the dog didn't become resource aggressive. So the point is getting respect in those little things pay big dividends when it comes to the big things. And that's just dog behavior overall. If 90% of the time they get to dictate what happens to them, when it happens, and how it happens, then what's to stop them from doing the naughty stuff? Because they don't really know right from wrong if they're allowed to do what they want the majority of the time. So, all right, folks, that's my time. That's it. Yeah, if you guys liked, if it helps you out in any way, give me a thumbs up. You know, share this video. Make sure you tune in next week. I appreciate you guys watching. You could have been anywhere else in the world, but you decided to be here with me. And for that, I'm grateful. I hope you guys have a great Thursday and rest of the week. We'll see you guys next time. Cheers. Finish.